Hello, I thought I'd go through a few of these comments again. Owen Knight, thank you so much for telling me what FFS means. I, yes, I balk at repeating it. Her innocence, says Owen, is immaterial. The problem here is the clear hypocrisy of the Tory government rampantly fleecing the British public on the company credit card, living in two homes themselves because of loopholes and vilifying the poor woman over an amount of money that they'd burn as a small pile in front of a homeless person on account of a Bullingdon Club prank. Yet more reasons why our media, amongst other establishments, needs oversight. I think it simply needs education, actually. Veron Allen says, meanwhile, all misdemeanours committed by Moon, Bone, Rag, Braverman, Truss, etc., get swept under the carpet, and the failures of Stop the Boats, Rwanda Plan, polluted rivers, post office scandal, emptying prisons, crumbling infrastructure, national debt, Brexit benefits, and bad trade deals are off the front pages. They're not off the front pages in my blog, my vlog, whatever it's called, file under Beergate and Donkeyfield. Well, I come back to the issue, and somebody else says here, Phil Thorpe says, sorry, Professor, we're constantly told ignorance is no excuse for tax evasion. Well, I think I'm not trying to make an excuse here. I'm trying to say that the information, the questions, the demands, the tax system is not written in clear English. The observations, the requirements are encoded so that an ordinary person trying to do this alone has a devil of a job trying to work out what on earth is being asked. And so one must rely on the professionals, which means, of course, one's putting money in their pockets all the time, because there isn't a way to do this on your own. And equally, there is increasingly very, very little chance of filling out complex surveys, answering the complex bureaucracy on your own. You can't do it because you don't know what is the coded question. And we have to get to a point where that way of approaching bureaucracy becomes history. We need a clear bureaucracy where a question is asked with guidelines, and in those guidelines we are told what is the purpose of this question. Why are we being asked this question? It shouldn't be so evasive and so bizarre. It should be clear. Why are we being asked this question? And once we know that, we can perhaps give the right answer. And the assumption that we can be caught out is a bad assumption. And today in the Financial Times, there's a really interesting article by Kenneth Clarke. And Kenneth Clarke is preening himself a little bit and saying that he left the economy in a really fine way for the Labour Party. Excuse me. But the economy now will be left in a really appalling way for the next government, which we assume will be Labour. And so Clarke handed on what he calls a booming economy to Tony Blair's New Labour in 1997. Instead, we've now got the worst combination, he says, of problems at home and abroad that any government will have taken on since the First World War. In the meantime, he takes he sees it as hopeful that Rachel Reeves has tied herself to the same sort of policies as Jeremy Hunt, in the same way that Clarke and Gordon Brown were united as 1997 gave way to 1998. Gordon Brown continued Clarke's policies for 2 years, longer probably than Clarke would have continued them. And so that narrowing of the differences economically between the Conservatives and the Labour Party is good for the country, and it means a smoother transition. Clarke, of course, left things in a better way. So the focus of the next government needs to be to clear up the mess. And part of that mess is the tricksy language which is employed, which ranges from the sloganizing, where people don't answer questions, to where ministers are literally reading off their briefing papers from the civil servants, who have now stopped writing. It seems to me they've stopped writing clear briefing papers, and they're literally writing the slogans that the ministers will say. I've seen some of these slogans, by the way, particularly in relation to Jeremy Hunt, and this isn't civil service briefing. This is acting lessons in how to manage a slogan. This is not the civil service. This is the PR wing of Saatchi and Saatchi. It's a sort of madness that has taken over. So when I talk about pulling back on the slogans, that is what I'm talking about. And the Labour Party is no better than the Conservative Party in its love of slogans and simplicity. Everybody likes a tricolon. It's very nice. It's very tidy. But we need to unpack that. And that's the job of the civil service. And it's the job of a minister to be able to explain what's going on rather than simply to repeat the same slogans. And when those slogans are useless, like, for example, the slogan that Rishi Sunak likes to wheel out with respect to migration, he wheels out "stop the boats," and then he goes on about jumping the queue. There is no queue because he's made sure there is no queue. Suella Braverman got rid of the queues because there is no safe and legal route for the majority of migrants to pursue when and if they want to come to the UK, and for whatever reason. There is no queue, so nobody can be queue jumping. It's a nonsense slogan, and it's simply a slogan picked up from another country. It's lazy politics.